Welcome, everybody, to the 23rd stream of DBB Live. Hope you've all had a great day so far and are ready to talk some Detroit basketball. As always, I'm Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys, and I'm joined by the Aussie himself, Jack Kelly from Detroit Bad Boys. And Jack, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good, Wes. I think I'm enjoying our new start time. I think it works okay for you, but for me, it's 8 a.m. So I've just had my morning coffee. And I'm excited, man. We sort of have some things to talk about today. Media days, it's less than 2 weeks away. So we're finally getting close to the real thing, or at least some preseason action and some actual Pistons sort of news. And yeah, this time of the year is pretty exciting. We're getting close to real basketball.
Yeah, I'm getting desperate at this point. I'll take even the training camp leaks. Like, I know that our beat writer guys, they don't actually get in to see the practices, but I'll even take just the talking about them. Hey, we heard that this happened. That would be great. I'm excited.
It's just before we dive into it, don't you think this feels like, at least since the COVID, like the 2020, this just feels like the biggest dead period ever, and it's probably got something to do with we've had a lot of shortened off seasons, condensed regular seasons and that kind of thing. But it just, since probably this past month in particular, has been extremely dead. It feels like the only thing we've had to talk about was the Rico Hines footage.
Yeah.
And
well, I think that building off that too is just that they weren't all that active this summer. I mean, they made a couple of trades on the margins, but at least in the past there have been some, like they traded for another first round pick. They drafted Cade Cunningham. Like, it was bigger stuff. And then this summer was all kind of, I don't want to say tinkering on the edges, but it wasn't as momentous, if that makes sense. So I don't think that helps us out either. We can't get as much range out of these topics.
No, that's a great point. And like the draft, I think falling to pick 5, and we're all excited about Asar Thompson. But last season we were sort of draft night was, last draft, 2022 draft, they got Ivy and Durant. There's a lot of excitement there with those two, and obviously Cade the year before. It just feels like there hasn't been. Yeah, I think that's a good point. But not as much excitement around the off season in terms of wow factor, at least.
Right. Well, all right. Let's get the ball rolling. We actually got, guys. We got two topics to kind of get the ball rolling for us today. And just kind of while we do, I want to make sure that you guys know, go ahead, type any questions into the chat here, send them in. We're going to touch on them real quick. This is just kind of, get some momentum going for us. So yesterday, news breaks. Buddy Hield wants out of Indianapolis. He's done. They wouldn't give him the contract he wanted. He wants to move on. So a little bit of background on Buddy Hield. Obviously, he's an expiring contract, so you would need to extend him, just like they did with Bojan last offseason. And he's primarily been like a 2 and a 3, so more of a pure wing, less so a forward, if that distinction makes sense. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts. I mean, I like Buddy Hield. I like the potential of maybe going after him, but do you think the Pistons should make a run at him? What would the package be? Just kind of what's your feel on Buddy Hield?
Yeah, I think, just to answer your question straight up, like I think there definitely should be some interest there from the Pistons. I think, look, if you want to classify him as a wing, he's probably on the smaller side. Just in terms of athleticism, and I think he's probably maybe 6'5", 6'6", which is not small, but I just think Sam Vecini put out a tweet yesterday saying he's been arguably the league's second best three-point shooter for the past 5 to 6 seasons. And I think that's definitely something the Pistons should be interested in. I think he's maybe around 30 years old. So it's not like, I think Buddy came into the league at like 22, 23 years old after 4 years at Oklahoma State. I can't remember, or maybe just Oklahoma. So he's not as young as you might think, but I think just in terms of the scoring ability, he's got one of the quickest triggers in the league. He can shoot off movement, can shoot off the dribble. Um, yeah, I think it's someone Detroit should definitely be interested in. Whether they have enough or a package that makes sense for both sides to get the deal done. I'm sure we'll get into that in a moment, but yeah, I think the Pistons should definitely be interested.
Well, I don't know. When I saw it, I was that was immediately a name. I was like, okay, if they're gonna make a trade, I'd kind of be, I would be on board with it. I like it. Like you said, I mean, he has an argument for being the second best 3-point shooter in the league behind Steph Curry. I mean, his volume is through the roof. He's doing it on a variety of different types of attempts, right? It's not just all catch and shoot. It's not just all off the dribble. Like he's pulling them out of ISO situations. He's doing them off the pick and roll, off the catch, off ball screening. Like he's doing everything, and he's still shooting a ridiculously high percentage consistently too. Like that would be a guy that Cade Cunningham would get. I don't know, almost half of his assists just kicked out to maybe. Like he would love playing next to Buddy Hield. Now, YouTube users right, and I did want to bring this up. He is a traffic cone on defense. He's not a good defender at all. And really, I don't think he's much of a ball mover either. Like this is to me, he's purely a play finisher type. Like he'll go get you buckets. So I kind of look at him as almost a younger, better Bojan Bogdanovic. I don't know if that's too ridiculous to say. Bojan's a little bit taller, but I think in terms of the role that they play on offense, it's about equivalent. And I'm already of the opinion that you could kind of get away with the SAR being your combo forward. So I'm kind of all in on it. Honestly, I'd grab him, start him at the 3. Like I'd be all over it.
So yeah, like I think I'm not sure I'm willing to say he's a better all-around scorer than Boyan because I think Boyan can do a lot, but I guess Boyan's a few years older. I think Buddy's 30. I think someone might have said in the comments he's 31.
He's 31.
Um,
Yeah, and
so
Bojan's
from
34.
and look, contract wise, they're pretty similar. Boyan's has only 2 million guaranteed after this season, and they're both roughly on 20 million for the upcoming season. It's worth mentioning that Buddy's is expiring after the season. Um, I think just being a few years younger, um, yeah, it's tough. Like I think I would maybe just prefer Buddy over Boyan because Boyan's defense and he doesn't bring a lot of rebounding. He is bigger, but yeah, like I'll put it like this: like if they made the trade and Boyan went out for Buddy, I'd be fine with it. If they don't do it, I'd also be fine with it. Um, so I mean, yeah, did you have a fake, I guess, a trade mocked up? Because I've got one here I put together, and I feel like people aren't going to like it. But when I sort of assessed what the Pacers, what their roster looks like, and what they might want in return for Buddy, um, yeah, this is all I could really come up with. So I'll just get to mine first. So I had
I'm
obviously the
interested.
Pistons
What do you
get.
got?
So I had obvious. So I'd said it before, but Buddy Hield, just to clarify, is on an expiring $19 million deal. So I had the Pistons taking on Buddy Hield and sending out Boyan. So Boyan's on roughly 20 million this season with only 2 million guaranteed next season. And I sent Isaiah Livers out as well because when I looked at the Pacers roster, they're pretty stacked at the guard position. Their front court seems set. Um, they sort of were just missing some true wings. So I thought maybe they get a younger prospect in Livers, and then they get Boyan, and they can figure out if they want to keep him. He obviously gives them shooting. So I have a feeling fans won't like that, especially Isaiah Livers fans. I'm not even 100% sure I would do that. I was just trying to look at it from a standpoint of what would Indiana be willing to take on, because I feel like there might be some other teams out there offering picks for Buddy. And obviously we don't want the Pistons sending out any future first, or I'm not even sure they can with that pick they owe the Knicks, but that's the best I could come up with. What would your thoughts be on that?
I would do that. I would do that. So I think you look at Buddy's he's a bit younger, but on top of him being younger, he also has a little bit less mileage on his tires, if this makes sense. I mean, he was at Oklahoma, I think, until he was almost 23 or 24, something like he was a abnormally old draft pick and rookie. So Yeah, I think I do it. I think that you've got the better long-term value, right? You'd be taking Bojan when he was 31 and taking him to now 34 instead of doing what the Pistons did last season, taking him at 33 and then signing him through 35, if I'm remembering right. So you're getting a little bit more distance out of it. And I really think Buddy Hield he's a good placeholder guy. Like I think you could probably get away with starting him at the three and just letting him score, letting him shoot. But long
Yeah.
term, over the next couple of years, he could pretty easily be unseated from that. He's kind of an upgrade over Alec Burks, if you think about it. So I do think that would make them better, and I think that's pretty good value. I shot higher with value. My gut was Bojan and Burks plus maybe a second, something along those lines. Obviously, in terms of functional just cap movement. I think the Pacers are going to have to add somebody to do that.
Yeah.
But I also think that would be more quote unquote value from the Pacers and I'd be comfortable sending that out too, especially considering it's you're kind of swapping two vets for a slightly younger vet who is individually either as talented as Boyan or slightly more talented. So I think it's a win on that. Plus, open up the Sasser spot. A lot going on there,
Yeah.
Jack.
And
Sorry.
no, 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 no. I think that's a great point. Like the Pistons don't necessarily have to, just because you send out a starter and a key rotation piece in Burks and Boyan, they don't necessarily have to bring back two players they can immediately insert into their 9-man rotation. Because as we've spoken about this whole offseason, I know there's still so much unknown. So when I say the Pistons have depth, like I'm talking about like projecting potential, but there is sending out two guys and getting one back isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. So yeah, I'm down for that. I just want to know, I put mine in the trade machine so that mine does work out money wise.
Nice.
But so that was part of why my deal was the way it was. But I think maybe I haven't watched enough Buddy Hill recently, but I'm and I guess if you have Buddy and Burks, maybe there's a touch of diminishing returns because they're similar size, similar sort of
Mhm.
like play style in the sense of they're both score first guards that are like sort of heater guys that can get hot. Maybe you're sending out a bit much, but I also wouldn't be upset with that deal either. Um, the one thing I wanted to touch on, I think you sort of raised it there with, so like I'm with Johnny here. Like I think Boyan is slightly a better offensive player than Buddy. But the thing, if you bring in Buddy, he's a few years younger. So there's potential to bring him back for another couple of seasons if that's something that the team wants to do. Whereas Boyan's like, he has this season, then he's really like, he's past, I think he could be 35 following this season, or at least heading into the following season. So
Mhm.
there's a decline coming for Boyan, and it could come quite quickly. You don't really know, just with like, obviously he's always going to be able to shoot the ball, but defensively, like we already know what he was last season. And people are right to point out Buddy's deficiencies there. I just think that few years in age gap, maybe you can get a bit more out of Buddy long term than Boyan. So I just want to raise that as well. But yeah,
That
do you
last thought on
ultimately?
it, then let's move on.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just gonna say I am quite possibly one of the largest Bojan Bogdanovic supporters in the online Pistons community. I am not in any way trying to besmirch the legacy of Bojan Bogdanovic. I think he's a great player. I want him to play a lot this year. I have a lot of high hopes for Bojan Bogdanovic. I think Buddy Hield is more or less equivalent to what you would get out of Bojan. And given that he's younger and that there's less miles on the tires, like you were talking about, right? So I think there's just more distance you could get out of him as an asset as a player than what you can out of Bojan. So that is why I'd be open to making the switch. Not
No,
because
that
I
that
think he's
makes
definitively better. I think he's better in some things, worse in others. I think they're more or less equivalent.
no, that makes a ton of sense. I guess let's just finish on this with just a yes no. Do you think the Pistons actually have enough to get Buddy Hield? Or do you think there's a deal there, sorry, between the Pistons and Pacers?
I do, but I think there's going to be a lot of competition. I can't think of a team that wouldn't want Buddy Hield, like just
Yeah.
flat out.
Yeah, I think I'd be shocked if the Pistons and Pacers agreed on a trade, just with, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
the other deals out there, or all the interest. Sorry. All right, that's enough Buddy Hill chat.
Yeah,
Let's move
let's throw
on.
it over to you before we get into some of the comments, because I know you had a fun idea to preview some players for us just for a couple minutes. So what do you got?
For sure. For sure. So obviously, as the show's title, we're going to preview the Pistons backcourt. This week we're going to do the backcourt, obviously, and then next week we'll do the front court. So basically, I just wanted to go through each player at the guard position on the Pistons roster currently. I won't be doing two-way players, but on the main roster, and just sort of get your thoughts on like your expectations for them this season. So instead of starting with the guys we've spoken about a lot, I thought let's start with the guys at the end of the depth chart, the guys we might not have spoken a lot about this offseason. So, what are your expectations for Marcus Sasser's rookie season, Wes?
I think that he's going to get spot minutes through and up to the deadline. So I would expect him to shoot the ball well and generally be kind of a microwave scorer, good enough defender, or very not good enough, good defender, just flat, pretty good defender as a rookie for a guard. I think that's going to be his role out of the gates. I'm hoping that he's going to play well enough in that role, play well enough in practice where they feel comfortable moving off of one of Morris or Burks, so that you can then insert Sasser into the rotation there. You know, maybe you can flip Burks and Boyan, like we were talking about earlier, for a wing or another forward, someone that kind of shifts into that spot and clears out the backcourt minutes a little bit to give Sasser a clear path. I think that's something that could happen, and he's going to have to play well enough to make it possible to happen. So my expectation is that he will, and that's on the table come February, right at the deadline.
I like it. I like it. I don't need to add anything else. I'm a big Sasser fan. Not 100% sure on his role this season, but I'm excited to see his growth with the team. And happy birthday to Marcus Sasser as well. I
Oh
believe it's
yeah,
his birthday today as well. So shout out to Marcus. And I know he's been on the Pistons pulse. So I guess he's a friend of yours,
I
Wes.
know he's watching us for sure. He's definitely tuning in right now. Happy birthday.
Oh, all right. The next guy we're going to have a chat about is always fun and interesting to talk about, and that's Killian Hayes. What are your expectations for Killian Hayes, Wes? Is he going to be on the team? Is he going to be in the rotation opening night? Is he going to be traded for opening night? What do you think?
Um, I want to give a hot take, and I want to see how hot you think it is. I don't expect him to play. I think he's last in the pecking order there. It would take some fairly incredible performance from him in training camp and in the preseason, I think, to unseat Marcus Sasser, who's ahead of him and who they've now invested a first round pick in and all that. So um, my hot take is he's not going to play and he doesn't get traded. And he finishes out the season in Detroit and then walks as a free agent to who knows where.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
I I don't know. I don't even know if I have anything else to say on Killian Hayes anymore. I love all the hot takes. Yeah. And shout out to Patrick. We appreciate you.
For
I'm not
sure.
sure if this is your first time commenting, but we appreciate all the support as always at this time of the off season. Those that have stuck with us throughout the throughout the past few months since summer league, we really appreciate it. Um,
So my thing with that, my reasoning on it, before we move on, he doesn't have any value right now, right? No one's gonna just trade for him straight up, and his contract is a bit too large to for most teams to just like take him on as salary and send out a second round pick. Actually, I think they might not even be able to do that anymore as we approach the season. So I don't see like a one for one trade, and his contract's almost like 10 million. Like I don't know how that's a lot to just add on to a trade. Like I don't see an avenue out unless he starts playing well, and I just don't think he's going to get a chance to.
No, for
So
sure.
I
Like,
think
and
he's
that,
going to finish the year with the team. Like I just don't think he's going anywhere. I think that's it. You're just going to get Killian Hayes. He's
that
going to sit on the bench for all 82 games, and then he's going to leave.
I know, and I get that. Like, I can see that definitely happening because I think we forget like how much first round picks, particularly inside the top 8, 9, 10, are on in their fourth season with the team. Like as you just mentioned, Killian would be close to 10 million. It might be 8, 9, 10 million, which, as you said, it's like it's a nice salary to have, but yeah, if he's not playing, um, yeah, I could see him being on the team. Part of me, like I see that, I just can't imagine him. I've gotten so used to Killian just being featured in the rotation and playing, 20 minutes a night at least. Um, just him sitting on the bench would be quite a weird look, but I completely see how that's a possibility and most likely to happen at least to start the season. All right. I don't have a take on Killian. I'm going to give it another couple of weeks. I'm in a couple of weeks because I don't know what to expect. Um, the next guy, we sort of had a chat about him in the Buddy Hield
Mhm.
conversation, but Alec Burks, what are your expectations for him?
I just want him to do exactly what he did last year. And I think it's fair to expect that he's going to do exactly what he did last year. I mean, he's a real good scorer, real good 3-point shooter, and a pretty good passer, good enough ball handler, right, to take pressure off the other point guard in the backcourt. So I think he's a really good vet backup shooting guard. And, I mean, he's probably the highest like value per dollar guy that they have on the roster right now. If I were to give an estimation on it, like his contract's pretty cheap, and the performance that you get out of him is really quite good for that amount that you're paying him. So, like if I had to pick a guy that probably gets traded at the deadline, I would almost think it'd be Burks. I think he'd have the highest amount of people asking about him, quite honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Because he's a guy as well. I think he's on 12 million maybe this season, 10 to 12
Hmm.
million, something like that. And he's a guy that you could see him easily contenders being interested in, like a microwave scorer off the bench, or also teams like the Pistons who just need that veteran, someone who can come in and
Hmm.
score 14 to 18 points on any given night, maybe more, knock down some threes. So I definitely could see him being the veteran moved at the deadline. Um, yeah, I just want him to do exactly what he did last season: knock down threes, sort of create off the dribble a little bit when it's needed. Um, and one of the things Alec Burks did last season was, and I think Pistons fans um, come to enjoy it a lot, was just watching him draw fouls around that free throw line area and get
Hmm.
to the free throw line, just swinging his arms through. It's not so much that rip through that's sort of like being you can't draw free throws from anymore, but he's really crafty on his drives with using his shoulders. And I feel like we even saw Jaden Ivey and Killian Hayes to a bit of a lesser extent sort of adopt some of those
They
foul
did.
drawing tendencies. So um, yeah, just come back and do exactly what he did last season. Maybe he'll be on a bit less playing time, but he's still a guy that can get 10 points in 4 minutes. So yeah, excited to see how he supports the younger guards this season.
Me
All
too.
right.
And then real quick, I think something with Alec Burks that always gets really, really undervalued. Um, he might not be great at it, but he can play the backup point guard. Like he could start at point guard. He's not going to be a good point guard. Like there's a reason there that he's the two. There's a reason that he doesn't end up playing the one. But he's functional enough at it to give him some positional like flexibility there, which I mean on a team with some really really young guards who look like they're going to get high minutes and only one like bona fide proven NBA point guard on the roster in Monte Morris, having a guy like Burks that can do it in a pinch and not totally sink the ship is incredibly valuable just with injuries, where the game's flowing. Like there are a lot of ways that Monty Williams could end up using that. So I think that's a huge skill, a huge plus that he has.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree for sure. Next guy, speaking of point guards, Monte Morris. This is a guy I've been really excited about. I was really excited about when I saw the trade go down and go through. So curious to hear your thoughts on Monte and how he can help Detroit this season.
Yeah, I was really excited for that trade too, and I've liked Monte Morris since his Denver days. I remember I don't think it was his rookie year, might have been his second year. He lit the Pistons up one time a few years ago. Um, don't know why I remember that, but I do. He's a good offensive player. He's a good enough defensive player. I think we've mentioned. I think you've brought this up. The comparison to Ricky Rubio in that Suns offense a few years back with Monty Williams. I think that's the role. I think that's the role he's going to get. He's that calming veteran presence. He's not going to turn the ball over. He's efficient. He's going to shoot the ball well. He's going to defend well enough. Like he's going to do all the little things that take all the pressure off of everyone else. And that's the exact kind of guard that this team needs because they do not have anyone else that can do it, at least that has proven it. We want to think Cade can be that guy, and I think Cade can be that guy, but he's not right now. And because Monte Morris is on the roster, he doesn't have to be, which is really important for guys. So I think I think it's that Ricky Rubio role. That's my expectation for him.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And yeah, he's just going to steady the ship when Cade and Jaden might be having issues with turnovers. Might have a few rough possessions down the floor where they get some bad shots or just get stuck in some ISO ball. I just feel like Monte's going to be that guy, that coach on the floor. Yeah, we've spoken about it a lot, but just he has potential to be the best point guard, best backup point guard in the league. I think he's been that before. It's out of him and is it Tyus Jones from the Wizards? Or maybe that's his brother. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about though. Yeah, I'm really excited to see Monte. I think he's a souped up version of Corey Joseph times 100. And I think that is valuable, especially on a team trying to make a bit of a jump in the standings. All right, we've got two more guys to get to. Two guys I would say everyone's most excited to watch and play together this season. So we'll start with Jaden Ivey first. We've spoken a lot about Jaden this offseason for obvious reasons, but yeah, what are you expecting this offseason, this upcoming season? And is there anything in particular about his pairing with Cade that has you excited or concerned?
I just think he can be really good off the ball. Like in general, he did it a bit at Purdue. He did it a bit for like that first week of the season. He's got a lot of that kind of talent, and I'm really excited to see it actually be used now that he's going to be playing almost entirely off the ball. My two things for him, I think that the catch and shoot 3-point percentage that's got to stay where it was is at about 36. That's got to be the same. So I'm expecting. I expect that it will, but it needs to be. And one thing I don't know. Maybe this is a bit too high of an expectation. I think he's got to be in that 18 to 20 points per game realm. I think he's got to be there. The team's going to need him to be there, and he's going to be playing off the ball more with more of a focus on his scoring. I think he can do it, and yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hoping to see, and at this point, I'm kind of expecting to see it as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point in regards to the scoring load for the Pistons and for, I guess, Jaden's, how we sort of see Jaden's future. Like, I think we've spoken about an eventual trade coming in a year, 2 years, 3 years. But if Cade and Jaden are going to be the backcourt when Detroit are competing for, top 4 playoff positioning, like we all want them to, I think, yeah, Jaden, you really need to see that scoring hover between 18 to 20. I think he can get there. I think he could get to at least 19 this season. I know that I think he averaged around 16 and a half as a rookie. I think with Cade, as you outlined, playing off ball alongside Cade's really going to help him a lot. And we saw in those first 12 games they played together, Jaden did cut. If you go back and watch it, he was cutting off ball. Not a ton, but it was there. The intent was there. And I'm really excited to see how Monty Williams sort of uses Jaden Ivey. A lot different, like he's very different to Devin Booker. Well, yeah, he's a different player to Devin Booker, but I'm excited to see how sort of Monte utilizes sort of Jaden's off-ball scoring ability alongside Cade. So yeah, I'm really high on
This will
Jaden.
transition us. Oh, sorry. I'm high on him
No, you're
too.
good.
This will transition us nicely into Cade. If you look at this roster right now for this upcoming year, and you generally, if you're going to be a competitive team, you want at least a few guys that are able to get. I mean, ideally over 18, but like realistically over 16 points a night. And you look at this roster and like, okay, Cade's gonna, Boyan's gonna, Jaden Ivey needs to, because who else will, right? He's almost the third banana by default at this point, and he's going to have to validate that. Otherwise, it's not going to go as smoothly this year as they all hope. So I expect that he can be that guy. I expect that he will be that kind of guy, but the team needs him to put up 18 to 20 a night. They need that kind of scoring out of him this season. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I agree. I think he's second or third in the pecking order in terms of shots and sort of scoring. So really excited to see him sort of on drives this season as well, and just attacking the rim. Can be a little bit more controlled, or just get to the free throw line a little bit more and finish a little bit better through contact. So that'll be something to watch with him as well. But as you sort of alluded to, the last guy, Kay Cunningham. What are your expectations, Wes? Is he going to be most improved player? He's going to be an all-star. Is he a sneaky third-team All-NBA? No, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just curious. Do you have a hot take
I
on
don't know
Cade,
if
maybe?
most improved. I don't have a hot take on him. I don't know if most improves even on the table. I mean, last year he averaged like 26 and 6 or something like that, I think, on the whole for his like 10 or 12 games that he played, which was pretty close to his rookie year. It's not really fair. I've said this before. I don't think it's a fair expectation, but it's where my expectation is. He, I need, I'm expecting him to look exactly as he looked right before he went down with that injury. That stretch of games where he was getting anywhere he wanted on the court. He was making all those mid-range jumpers. He was getting to the free throw line. He was doing everything. Rebounds, assists, all of it. And it was fairly efficient outside of that three-point shot. So I expect that that's the Cade we're going to get, even though he's had basically an entire season off and away from basketball. And that three-point percentage ticks, closer or above 33%. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's fair for me to ask that of a guy that just missed, 70 games or whatever he missed last season and a portion of the offseason as well. But I don't know. You're the number one pick. You're the face of the franchise. I think it's fair. Maybe I shouldn't say it's that I think it's fair. I don't think it's fair, but I think that it's required that it be asked of him to reach that level. So that's where my expectations are at.
100% with you. And I just wanted to bring up, so prior to his last game where he was clearly bothered by that shin injury against Boston and only scored 2 points. So in the 11 games prior to open the season, Cade averaged 21 points, 21 and a half points, 6.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists. And he was shooting, look, the percentages weren't great, but 43% field goal and 31% from three. So, and that's including a bit of a slow start. So he had that 6-game stretch in there where he was a genuine 26, 7 and 7, or 25, 7 and 7, something like that. So I'm not expecting
That's the
25,
stretch
7
that
and
I'm
7.
talking about.
Yeah,
That's what
where he
I'm
went.
saying. I'm expecting 25, 7 and 7.
And I think the rebounds and assists are definitely there, 100%. I think the scoring, no matter what, will be between 22 and 25 is what I expect. Probably closer to 25, but I think a lot depends on that 3-point shot to open the season. I'm not talking about the first 3 games, but the first real stretch of the season, like 10 to 15 game stretch just to see how that 3-point shot's looking. I won't be completely alarmed if it's still hovering around 31%, but I will be starting to get a little bit concerned. And I really want to see if he can get to the free throw line more. I've been a bit skeptical on him being a massive free throw, like a big free throw line guy, which is why I might not be as high on his scoring potential as others. But really interested to see. He's obviously added more muscle once again this offseason. I'm excited for Media Day because I'm going to do this thing once again where I get his rookie season Media Day photo in year 3 just to show the size he's put on through the chest area and the arms. But we're interested to see if that helps him get to the line more. And I'm really excited to see him back on the floor. Posted some highlights the other day of him going into Milwaukee and dropping the 27, 7, and 7. And I just think that is what we will see from Pete Cade, sort of getting to his spots in the mid-range against some of the league's best defenses. So very excited for year 3, Cade Cunningham. Sort of feels like only his second season, to be honest.
Yeah,
so
it does. Well, I mean, he did lose almost all of last year, right? The thing is, it doesn't really, like, he's not going to get the James Wiseman thing where he missed a whole season of basketball. So it's like, oh, hands up. He's only played X number of minutes, so we're going to lower our expectations. I don't think that you can do that with Cade. I don't think you can. I think you have to ask him to be exactly what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Like, not quite Luka Doncic, but like close.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to be very interested to see, like, I feel like I know how Monte will utilize him predominantly. Like, I think it'll still be a lot of pick and roll and that kind of thing, but interested to see sort of his usage rate and that kind of thing come the end of the season. Because I'm not sure like Luka Doncic he's by himself in terms of usage. And then like there's the Houston Rockets, James Harden, but interested to see Cade's usage because I think he has plenty of potential off ball and sort of not sure you want him being that heliocentric guy, full stop. So be interested to see how Monte uses him for sure. Or Monty.
Just before we get to the questions, and I do want to throw out, I think we just set a record for the longest we've taken to get 2 questions. So both a good and bad thing. So we're happy the conversation's been so good, but also sorry we haven't gotten to your questions yet. We're about to. I just wanted to throw in with usage. That's all about play finishing, right? How something ends, how the possession ends. So having Cade necessarily play off ball, if he's shooting a crap ton of catch and shoot threes off ball in those situations, like that's his primary usage off ball, it's still gonna play a large percentage on his usage. It's still going to go up. So I just want to throw that little statistical thing out there.
No, that's a very good thing to throw in because I did not know that. I've learned something today. Thank you, Wes. All right, question time.
Yes.
And once again, thank you everyone for the questions. I just wanted to quickly shout out Camille because I believe I saw something in here about his health.
Yes, sir.
His medication treatment is over. My heart problem is not very serious. Surgery is not required. That's awesome to hear. Camille's a legend in the Pistons Twitter community. So shout out to Camille and glad to hear you're doing well. All right. First question, or this one's a bit of a statement from John Buck. Durant will be our second best player when it's all said and done.
Love it. I don't agree with it, but I love
it. I don't think so.
I kind of want to just leave it at that.
We've spoken about Jalen.
I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah, we both think that's a possibility. I understand it because he's so raw and there's so much to work with there. So if he ends up being the second best player on Detroit, I think that'll be a great thing because it'll mean he's a defensive monster and he's doing things offensively that are very exciting and conducive to winning. All right. Next one here from Rab. We need Pascal Siakam or Jeremy Grant at the 4. Cade, Ivy, Asar, Siakam, Durant equal playoffs.
All right, I started this one. I wanted to ask you, would that lineup actually be playoffs? I mean, you could substitute Jeremy Grant in there at the 4 as well instead of Siakam, whichever you think is a better fit. But would that actually mean playoffs?
See, with Siakam, I would lean more to yes, because maybe they could get it to like that ninth split seed. But if we're talking about being a lock for top 8, I'm not sure I would go there. Like as good as Siakam is, I just feel like with all those young guys, you're still just a year away. But I could see how people think that for sure. What about you?
I was gonna lean no, just in general. I think either way you swing it, I think that's a no. And primarily because like if you just read down that lineup there, year 3, year 2, year 1,
Yeah,
whatever Siakam is, year 2. Like Siakam being the one vet who can score and can rebound and is a very good defender. Like Siakam's an all-star type player. That definitely raises the floor of this team. But Siakam's not going to throw the team on his back and carry you into the playoffs. He showed last year that that's not an option. That's not what's going to happen. And I think last year's Raptors team has an argument for being a little more talented than that roster because they had OG, they had Jakob Pertl as well, who's a little more proven than Duran is. So I don't think that would guarantee playoffs. If we're going to talk like percentages, that 15 to 20% maybe that they would make it. I don't think
yeah.
it'd be a foregone conclusion at all.
The other thing I wanted to just add in there is I feel like you may have to give up one of those
A
players to
lot.
get Siakam. Yeah, like I don't know if you can actually get that 5 out there because I feel like one would probably be gone, definitely. So, like the thinking though, I think Siakam would be a good fit on this team in the sense of like his play, like his archetype as a player, and like he's obviously an all-star,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can see why fans are definitely curious about Siakam in Detroit. All right, next one from John again. Shout out to John. If Durant starts shooting 35% from 3, oh boy, would you consider him as a 4 if you had a legit center? Let
This is this is entering Andre
35%.
Drummond offseason territory. Oh my god. I'm having like Vietnam flashbacks to
Someone,
discussions. Can
oh,
Andre Drummond shoot league average from 3? Oh my lord. Okay. If Duran's shooting 35% from 3, would he be a 4? No. I would still say no because he cannot guard out in space. This is one of those like you look at this is obviously kind of a spectrum, right? So like look at a guy like Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart is really, really switchable on pick and rolls, on handoffs. He can switch out onto a wing or a guard and hold his own, but he can't guard threes. Like no matter how good Isaiah Stewart's going to shoot from 3, you can't start him at the 2, right? He can't guard them full time. So he's a switchable big. Okay. Jalen Duran is on that same kind of spectrum, but even less so. Like, in my opinion, you could probably switch Jalen Duran out onto the bigger ball handling 4s. So like your Giannis, your Julius Randle, your Siakams, those type of guys, those really physical big 4s that handle the ball quite a bit and do take pick and roll and handoff reps all the time. I'm comfortable switching Duran out onto those guys. Out onto guards, I would much rather have him showing and recovering. Like, I don't think he can really hold his own out on those quicker guys in space. And again, it's a spectrum, right? So he can do it a little bit, but you definitely don't want to be running an only switch system with him at the 5. Okay. So, with all of that said, it really doesn't matter how well he shoots because in the NBA, you are who you guard, and he can't guard 2, 3, 4. He can only guard 5. He can
yeah.
he can switch a little bit, but he can guard 5s. So that's where I'm at with it.
I agree with everything you said there, and that's a really good summation, honestly, like in terms of the defensive side of the ball. And I think I like how you sort of started this with Andre Drummond because what I learned watching going through
I'm
that
sure
process
you
of
like
getting
that I started this with Andre Drummond.
but I'm actually being serious here. It's like, so I remember I was like, oh, if he can shoot 35, like whatever he shoots from 3, he's gonna average 20 points a game. But the thing we forget, and Jalen Duran has lots of similarities to Andre, especially young Andre
Mhm.
Drummond. why do you want to take these athletic pick and roll, dunking, rebounding machines away from the rim? Like, you outlined everything defensively, and I like fully agree with all of it. But it's just like Jalen Duran is a rebounding, like offensive rebounding machine. And I get at times you don't want to be crashing the offensive glass all the time, but you just want him picking and like setting picks and roll into the rim. Like I just think that's just where he's just going to be a problem. Like, I don't know if I want to see Jalen Duran spacing in the corner, even if he's shooting 35%. I think you're losing some value there. So for me, like he's a 5. I don't see him as a 4. The defensive reasons you outlined, and just like his gifts, his size, his athleticism, his strength. Like you want that in and around the paint, in my opinion. So that's all I would add. If he did shoot 35% from 3, that would be cool and all, and it'd be nice for every now and then for him to knock one down. But I still don't know if I want him taking like 3-pointers a game, if that makes sense.
Agreed. I wanted to bring this up because this is a great follow-up question from John. Could Rasheed Wallace defend guards? The answer is no, he couldn't. But you also got to remember time and place, right? Like those 04, like that 04 team, they were playing what would now be lineups that would be like 2 centers. Like everyone was Cat and Rudy Gobert out there, right? Like not many teams were playing small. And I do believe that if you took Sheed and you just like had him be the exact same player that he was, and he just kind of like time machined him into today, he'd be a 5, right? Like Rasheed Wallace's best attribute defensively was low post defense. Ben Wallace was your help roamer, right? The guy that was
Yeah.
blocking all the shots off the weak side. And generally, Rasheed Wallace was the guy that like took your big post up guy and took him away because he was so good at it. So I would say Rasheed Wallace definitely couldn't defend guards, and then today would be a 5. So even with all the shooting that he did, but that was just kind of a fun little thought experiment. I like that from John.
No, for sure. And I'll obviously defer to you on the earlier Pistons days from early 2000s. But one quick question. Do you think Sheed and Ben Wallace could make it work today as a top 3? Like if you had those two as your starting 4-5, do you think they could anchor a top 5 defense in the NBA?
I want to say yes. I think it would be hard. The thing is, if you could find a way to scheme Ben so that he would still be purely your free safety back there, you could probably make it work. I mean, he was a ridiculous athlete. He was incredibly quick. So I think you could probably set up fairly similar to what the Grizzlies are doing, and you would get a fairly top tier defense. I think Ben Wallace is like timeless enough in what he was great at on that end that would still work. But like if it wasn't going to work, it wouldn't be because of Ben, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I got you. I like it. All right. Next question. This is changing it up a little bit from John again, which we love the questions. We appreciate you, John. Should the Pistons try to get Kuminga?
For the right price. I really like Kuminga in that draft. I really did. Like I was still considering him, I think, like top 4 or so. And then what did he fall to? 7 or 8, something like that. So
Yeah.
no, I really like him. Super athlete. I think we found out now over the course of his career that he is more of a 4-3 than he is a 3-4, because that was a question when he was coming into the league. But I think he would be a pretty fun fit next to Sar Thompson long term if you could get him to figure some things out, right? Like if that jump shot could come along. He's a pretty good defender. He's an incredible athlete, great open court player, and he can handle the ball a little bit. You'd want that rebounding to tick up, but he's big physical guy, so you think maybe that can. He's on a short list of young guys that I would be comfortable taking a swing on instead of having a draft pick next year, if that makes sense.
That's
So like
what I was
if
going
you
to
get
ask.
into the off season and
Would you
you're picking like 12.
Would you consider him a reclamation project? Because for me, like I get everything you outlined, and I think there's definitely a really, really good player in there. If the price was right, bringing him in, I'm not sure he helps. Like, I say this like because I'm of the opinion and like the way I see this team is like they need to start winning this season, not playoffs, but start winning this season. And then next season's like like for me, the 24-25 season is huge in terms of
Mhm.
we're going to really start to see what this core is made of and how this roster's been built. So bringing in Kaminga, who I'm basing this off the assumption he's still trying to find his feet a little bit this season. Like I don't think he'll be a starter. Could be wrong, but yeah, that's the only thing that holds me back from Kaminga is like, okay, we're going to bring in another guy who's going to need minutes to figure it out and sort of find out what he is in the league. Like, once again, extremely exciting player and potential wise, but that's my only hesitation with a guy like him because I see the vision, like with him starting at the 4 alongside Asar Thompson, like that's ridiculous. Jalen Duran, like that's amazing if he hits, but I'm just not sure if I want to keep bringing reclamation projects, even if they have that sort of the pedigree or stature that Kaminga has as a prospect.
So I don't know. I think there's just a little difference in a James Wiseman type reclamation project, and if you could imagine being on the like the Atlanta Hawks side of the Sadiq Bey trade, like Sadiq was a quote unquote reclamation project too, at least in the sense that you were saying it, right? Like he still is going to need time and he's still going to need to find himself a little bit. Sadiq Bey will, right? I think Jonathan Kuminga is the same way, but I would draw the distinction between a guy like James Wiseman or if you're going to trade for Killian Hayes. These are guys that haven't figured anything out, I guess I would say. And Kuminga and Sadiq Bey have figured out at least how to be NBA players. So what you're banking on is still more of the long run upside, and that they could be maybe a starter, maybe a borderline all star, and it's not starting from ground zero. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, that
I don't know. I think it's
that
a
definitely
valuable
makes sense.
distinction to make.
I think that definitely makes sense. And I'm glad you brought that up. Because for the record, don't think I'm not putting him in the same category as
Mhm.
Wiseman. I think where I'm coming from is I'm more ready to surround Cade, Jaden, and Jalen with more known types of players. Like, you know what you're getting. I guess, like, not necessarily like 28, 29-year-old veterans, but you're sort of just guys that you know what you have. Maybe that's the wrong way to look at things. That would be my only hesitation with bringing in Kaminga. Like, I think, um, yeah, I would be all in if like they'd made a trade. Like, because I get the excitement, the potential. I guess that's just my one drawback with bringing in a player like Kaminga with where he's at in his career. All right,
Can I throw this in real quick? Because it's funny.
go for
You and I we're actually coming from the exact same place, right? Like
it.
of the like I want a little bit more experience on the roster, right? But where I'm branching off is I don't want to start a rookie next year at the 4. I don't want another like forward or wing prospect to now go next to Asar. So I would rather have a guy that's got like 2-3 years of like, hey, I've
Yeah.
proven I'm an NBA player, and then now maybe I can go a step further. It's the same gamble. I just skipped 2 years. So we're coming from the same spot. It's just really funny that we like branched off a little bit.
I love it. I love it. All right, we still got so many questions here. Appreciate everyone being so active in the comments. Next one from YouTube user. I don't think Troy would have Killian walk for nothing. I think he would bring a second round pick.
Oh. All right, I flagged this one because I wanted to bring this up, and this would be a preview for any like trade deadline conversation too. So if that ever the whole let someone walk for nothing idea, right? Whenever that comes up at the trade deadline, you can bookmark this. I'm going to be saying the exact same thing. You didn't let him walk for nothing, right? So if you look at a guy like Alec Burks, if you don't trade him at the trade deadline, what you did instead of trading him for a second round pick and banking that second round pick is going to be something in the rotation, you got the remaining 20 games of Alec Burks, right? Like you didn't get nothing. If you don't trade Killian Hayes It could be A, that you just couldn't find anyone to take him, or B, you wanted that depth in case anyone got hurt on the stretch into the play-in game, hopefully, right? Like you aren't literally getting nothing out of these guys. Maybe you're not getting long run value, but no matter what, you're trading the now for the long run, right? So in this case, you're trading Killian Hayes for a future second round pick that you hope might contribute eventually. You're foregoing what he could give you the rest of the season. So like the now is valuable. You're not just letting him go. You got something out of him. So I don't know. That was just I wanted to bring that up because I'm definitely going to be talking about it in February. Guarantee it.
I'll remember that. I'll try to remember that.
Book it.
Killian has chat around the trade deadline. All right. Next question from Patrick Wickett. Well, this is once again more of a statement. I still want to put it out there. Ivy could be a perennial 6-man of the year.
He could. Who's going to unseat him? Right? Like who's taking that starting spot away from him would be my question. Does Asar drop down to the 2? Do you start Morris? Like what would have to happen for Jaden Ivey to be off the bench, do you think? Like is there any way?
I'm just going to say this. People can hold me to this, record it, whatever. Come at me if I'm wrong, but Jaden Ivey will never come off the bench consistently for the Detroit Pistons. If he's not working out, he'll be traded while he has value. And I think he's a starting 2 guard on the Pistons, no matter what. I understand if you want to say he's a 6-man, like later in his career, if things don't fully pan out, I get that as like a spark plug, but he will never come off the bench for Detroit. Unless it's coming back from injury or unforeseen sort of weird circumstances.
I agree, but you're forgetting when they go and sign Devin Booker or whatever.
I just don't think Jaden will be on the team when that happens.
They're going to trade Devin Booker, and then
I'm willing to put that in unforeseen circumstances because I don't know.
Fair enough. No, I agree.
You know what I'm saying. I think everyone understands what I'm saying. Yeah. But come at me if I'm wrong. I'm just that's not even me being a massive believer in Jaden Ivey. I just think from a roster management standpoint, like if Jaden Ivey's not panning out, like you'd look to trade him while he has still value and before you re-sign him to a contract or something like that.
All right, everyone. That's at Jack_Kelly_313 on Twitter. Bookmark this. If Jaden Ivey ever comes off the bench, let him have it. All right.
But I appreciate the statement and the thinking, Patrick. So that's not me having a go at you. All right. Next one from Johnny. Katie's going to be a pick and roll monster this year. Absolutely, he is.
Yeah, absolutely, he is. He's going to be. It's going to be him, Ivy, Morris, and potentially Burks and Bojan, and like no one else is going to run the pick and roll at all. Because everyone's real quick to bring up that Monty Williams doesn't run a lot of pick and roll. His offenses aren't a lot of pick and roll. It's not technically true. I mean, it is in the literal sense, right? But what happens with all these other teams that get to the top of the pick and roll charts is generally they have a lot of guys that run pick and roll. Monty Williams was pretty much just CP3 and Booker. Like those were the guys that ran pick and roll. Everyone else really didn't. So it kind of lowered the ceiling. I think you're going to get the same thing. Like Cade's going to get a ton of pick and roll. Ivy's going to get a ton of pick and roll. Morris, Burks, and Bojan a little bit. And that's going to be it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great. I'm really excited.
Exactly. Like the NBA is a pick and roll league. So like even if frequency wise, maybe Monty Williams teams have been at the bottom, like they're still running a heap of pick and roll. Just not as much as the other teams. Like the only other team that stands out doesn't run a lot of pick and rolls. And obvious one is the Warriors. But like, yeah, there's still going to be a heap of pick and roll opportunities for Cade. And like, he's still like has not had a chance with a real role man. Like he had 25 minutes with Jalen Duren last season, and he had Marvin Bagley for 25 games as a rookie. And he got Marvin Bagley a $36 million contract extension. He had
Yes.
me thinking Marvin Bagley could be the starting four for a minute. So no shot. Like, yeah, I'm so excited to see him in the pick and roll because that's something from day one. Even when he struggled to score, like you just see the way he operates with in ball screens. It's one of his like strengths for sure on offense.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I'm pumped. And then just in general, too, like you look at the Warriors, Steph still runs a lot of pick and roll. Like,
Yeah,
I just if a guy's not good at running pick and roll, don't let him run it. I love it. I can't wait.
for sure. We got 4 more questions here.
All right, sweet.
All right. Once again from Patrick, this will just be a yes, no. Will Cade play over under 70 games? I'm taking the under just.
Yeah, I'm taking the under, and I mean, if a guy gets minor injuries, nicks and bruises throughout the year, like they're gonna get close to that 70 game mark, whether it be above or under it, plus minus like 5. So, yeah, I'm gonna lean towards the under too, because I don't actually fully expect them to be in play in competition, and maybe he suddenly twists his ankle in practice and miss a few games at the end of the year. You know, for
Exactly.
the
If
tank.
you if you had have set that at 64, 65, I would have taken the over for,
I
for some
think so too.
context. All right. Johnny, bit of a spicy one here. Gents, should we trade for Cat?
Maybe. Would they want Duran back? I doubt it because of Gobert. But if they did, like if I could build a package for Carl Anthony Towns where I effectively swap Duran for Cat and leave the majority of the rest of the roster like as is in terms of young guys, like yeah, yeah, I'd do that. And all
Hmm.
the attitude, whatever that is, and the defensive stuff aside, like dude can score. Dude would be a great partner next to Cade and Ivy. Like I know he's going to get paid a
And a
massive
Sar.
amount, but like
Yeah.
yeah, and Asar, like he would be a
Assad
real good
doesn't need
fit
to
for
shoot
mine.
with
So
Cat. Sorry, I cut
no,
you off there. I just got to be excited. But yeah, Assad doesn't need, there's not as big a reliance on that shot if he's playing next to Carl Anthony Towns instead of Jalen Duran. But
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like
but that
as far as the contract goes, too, like Cade's going to get an extension that's not going to kick in until the year after next year. Ivy the year after that. Like you've got enough buffer here for the cap to really shoot up, and then to still pay. Like those would just be your 3 guys. Like you just pay those guys a buttload of money and hope Asar doesn't get anywhere close to the max, which I think is fair. So I wouldn't even be too worried about the money, and he's going to get paid. Yeah, $60 million. 60. Wow.
crazy. But these are the sort of conversations. Like I still think we're a year away from these conversations. Maybe I'm wrong,
Yes.
but these are like this is. So my initial reaction was like, no, not Cat. He's too expensive defense. But then it's like every player that the Pistons are going to entertain. Like when you're a medium or small market team that has to acquire these guys via trade, or I guess a lot of these players now are all acquired by trade. Free agency seems to be a bit more dead these days, at least in recent off seasons. So
Mhm.
you're never going to get that perfect player like that fits in with every like I feel like every player on 50 60 million dollars there's going to be areas that you're concerned with. And Cat, like you said, you could say he's the second best shooting big man of all time. Like I still think it's Dirk,
Yeah.
but in terms of just flat out shooting the ball, like, and as a scorer, like he's one of the most efficient ever. If he probably is more efficient than Dirk in the numbers, but so like I just that's I don't know where I'm at. But I mean I see Cat on this team, and like you mentioned the attitude stuff, but I don't know. Maybe change the scenery helps that. You never know.
Yeah. So last thing I'll say on it, I think if you're just gonna like go into a lab and create the best like offensive 5 to pair next to Cade and Ivy, he probably looks a lot like Joel Embiid. Okay, so not Carl Anthony Towns, but you look at Carl Anthony Towns and you get 85% of Joel Embiid. Like that's pretty dang close. Like it's almost a 100% ideal fit in terms of offense at that 5 spot. You'd really be relying on Asar for defense. You would need to find a defensive 4. Um, but just in terms of like star players meshing together, it almost doesn't get much better in terms of a 1-2-5 pairing than that would. I think there are other stars that would fit better, but they aren't 5s.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm with you. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm just envisioning the tweet. Karl Anthony Towns is being sent to the Pistons. Everything that
Part
would
of the
come with that.
Damian Lillard trade
But,
somehow.
but you know
Just
what?
bring
I
everything
would
full
be
circle for us.
I would be so excited because I think you and I both just like thing we love about basketball is like the on-court product, and it's just
Yeah.
putting him with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey and whoever else would remain on the roster. Like that would be. I would be very excited for that.
Me too.
All right, we've got 2 more here. Once again from Patrick Wickett. How many games will Asar start? Over, under 20?
You know my answer. What's yours?
It's a good line, as in like the 20 as the over under. I think I'll say over. I think I'll say over.
Yeah.
How
I
many
think it's a
games are
good
after the
number.
trade? Yeah.
I think he
Yeah.
might double that.
Yeah.
Like if we get to the end of the year and he started like 55, 60 games, I'm not shocked in the slightest. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm hoping that he starts all the games that he plays. So easy over for me.
There you go. All right. And last question here from Harry. What do you think is the most underrated skill set a modern NBA player can have, and which current Pistons has the best chance to develop it? Wow, this is an awesome question. And I wish I had some time to
Yeah.
prepare for it.
Me too. Wow, Harry, really good question.
So I've got one here to lead us off. I'm not
Hmm.
sure. This is just off the cuff, and this is the first thing that came to my mind. But I think it's sort of. I don't think it's the most underrated, but it's something I think that can really help an offense, and that's a big man that can pass. And I think for Jalen Duren, I'm not saying he's Jokic. There's just one of this. This is the first thing that came to mind. So I think his ability to sort of make some reads as a short roll man, someone in the dunker spot, or even on offensive rebounds to bring it back in and make the right pass. I think that's something that could help Detroit this season a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to change the world. That's just the first thing that came to mind. I'd love to have some more time to prepare for this because this is an awesome question. But yeah, I think a passing big man is something that can be really valuable, especially in today's NBA.
All right, I think I've got an answer. And it's something I alluded to a little bit earlier when we were talking about Alec Burks. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be a cop out because it requires a lot of skills to do it, but I'm going to stick with it. I think probably the most underrated thing is just to be able to play multiple spots effectively, right? Not even like really well, right? Guys that can play it really well are guys that look like LeBron James, Magic Johnson, like ridiculous. They can play 1 through 5. It doesn't matter where you put them. But I'm talking about the role player type guys that can maybe go to 3 different spots, or like Cade, right? Cade can play 1, 2, 3 reasonably. Just having that kind of flexibility, which does inherently mean like, all right, yeah, I can dribble, I can pass, I can probably shoot, I can defend multiple positions. Like there's a lot that gets baked into it, but just having the flexibility to be functional in a lot of different spots, playing a lot of different roles, really is just incredibly valuable. Look at a guy like Bruce Brown, who made his whole living at this point is just based off the fact that for a bit there he played the 1 in Detroit, and then he's played the 4, and I think he even had minutes at the 5 last year. Like you could put Bruce Brown anywhere out on the court and he's going to play, and he's going to play well. So if you're like a role player type guy, if you're too specialized, you can get into the fringe. But if you can do a lot of things and you can be kind of amphibious and you can go anywhere, right? I think that would be probably the most valuable thing because that brings you up from like borderline NBA to getting paid like Bruce Brown. So that's where I'd go with it.
No, that's a much better answer than mine. And I think that sort of leads into sort of just versatility. I guess overall, I feel like
Yep.
that's
Yep.
today's NBA. It's just been versatile, and you might not be, as you said, like the absolute best option at every position. Like that's for the LeBron Jameses of the world and the
Yeah.
generational types. But being versatile at both ends, as you mentioned with like Alec Burks, being able to play spot minutes at the one, play at the two and the three. And I think Cade's the best example probably on the roster of like a guy that can you
Yeah.
can put in if we think he can shoot if the shot gets there, which I think we both think it will, like having him off ball, on ball, and then defensively he can do stuff off ball, on ball, like be a disruptor, do some stuff at the point of attack. Like I think that's just being versatile. Like if you want to get paid, as you mentioned as well, like yeah,
Yeah.
being able to play multiple positions and do it to a decent or high level yeah, is key.
Another name on the roster. I mean, Asar Thompson right now, I think he could be a 3 or a 4. Actually, because of his shot, he might be better suited offensively at the 4. But regardless, depending on how his ball handling progresses over the years, I mean, that's a guy that might be able to shift down to the 2 if it really goes through the roof and he can really handle the ball in the pick and roll. Then like spot minutes at the 1. Um, there's there's a lot that he could do in 4 years if things break right for him. And then, I mean, like you said, right? It's like it is with Alec Burks. Just the fact that yeah, he's a scoring 2 and he's 32 years old, he can shoot the crap out of the ball. Like that's what you want him doing. Absolutely. But in a pinch, if things have gone really wrong, like you've had a bunch of injuries, guys foul out, the fact that you can stick Alec Burks at the 1 is kind of game changing for how you deal with the rest of the lineup, right? So just having any level of flexibility, the more the better, I think is possibly one of the most valuable things in the NBA right now.
Excellent answer. I love it. And I think we're going to finish on that, at least.
I don't have anything else.
Great question, though, from Harry. That was an excellent one to
Yeah,
finish
that
on
was
and
great.
close. So we appreciate that. Um, as always, thanks to my co-host, Wes. Today was a really fun show. And it
That
was
was a good
really
one.
fun in part due to all the comments, the questions, all the engagement from everyone tuning in. Um, we seriously appreciate you guys. We can't wait for the season to start. We're getting very close now. Appreciate everyone that's stuck with us throughout the off season, tuned in every week. And special mention to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys. As always, he's the man that makes this go. I think we're going to try and get Sean on here. Maybe I'll try and get Sean on next week to
Yeah,
talk about the bigs, the
definitely.
front court. I know he's a big fan of all the bigs, all the centers Detroit have. So maybe we'll try and get Sean on for next week to talk about the front court. But until then, we'll see you next Thursday. Go Pistons.